Welcome to Let's Talk. I'm Shelby Renee.
Hey, this is your girl, Shelby Renee.
Joining me now is the multi-talented Egypt, NFL superstar UNC Thickpen.
Phenomenal, Holly Robinson Pete. How are you? How are you? How are you? How are you? How did you feel when you were auditioning? Like, how did you shake the nerves?
Should athletes be held to a higher standard of ridicule?
What is the one message that you would like to get across to today's youth?
Why do you feel that it's important to give awards such as the Watkins Award to young African-American athletes?
Hey, this is your girl, Shelby Renee, checking in for Let's Talk. I'm here at one of the kickoff parties for the 2003 NBA All-Star Game in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm going to be talking to mad celebrities because they're all in the house tonight, so please stay tuned for more right here on the Youth Channel. Joining me now is the phenomenal Holly Robinson Pete. How are you?
Phenomenal.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I'm doing fine, thank you.
Great. Thank you for taking time out to answer a few questions for our viewers. With both of your parents involved in the entertainment industry, what was it like when you were a child, being exposed to the business so early?
Well, it was a little confusing because at 4 years old, you know, everything is real. And my dad was on Sesame Street, so when he was talking to like a man in a grouch in a trash can, you thought that was real. So it was a little difficult because I didn't know how to separate the reality from the fantasy. But it instilled in me a really great respect for the business and a real professionalism early on as a child.
And I know you've had a long and successful career. I'm one of your biggest fans going all the way back to 21 Jump Street. But you've also taken time to form the Holly Rod Foundation along with your husband. So could you just tell us about the mission of the organization?
Oh, sure. The Holly Rod Foundation was formed by my husband, Rodney Pete, and I about 7 years ago, 6-7 years ago, to raise funds for people with Parkinson's disease and other movement disorders. My dad just recently passed away about 5 months ago, thank you, from Parkinson's disease, complications due to Parkinson's. And it's a really rough disease, and when my father was diagnosed in the 80s, quite young, like in his 40s. And at that point, remember in the 80s, there was no internet.
Right.
There was no, like, information highway, and it was really hard to find out information on Parkinson's. So we started a foundation, and we're on the web at hollyrod.org to try to disseminate information to people who may have either been diagnosed with it or caregivers of someone with Parkinson's, to raise money to help the quality of their life.
And I know you have played so many different roles. How do you prepare for your roles?
You know what? I live with the script, and I love television because it affords me to be with my family. I have 3 kids now. 3 kids. That's a whole nother vibe right there. So I just prepare by being very, knowing my lines and grabbing the character and being comfortable with what I'm doing.
You mentioned your beautiful children. How has motherhood impacted your career?
Well, I don't sleep. Let's start there. But it's made me more aware of my priorities in life, that family is very important. You hear that all the time. It's like a cliche, but the reality is that family is very important. And I love my kids now. When I take jobs, I only take jobs that can get me out in time to pick up my kids from school. So it's a little difficult to juggle it, but I manage.
Right. And lastly, what is the one message that you would like to get across to today's youth?
Oh, I would like to get across to today's youth that it's very, very important for y'all to finish school. Because that's the one thing, education is the one thing that no one can ever take away from you. And with that, you can go so far. It's like they can say a lot of things to you to put you down, to tell you you can't advance in life, especially people of our color. But when you're book smart, they can't never take that away from you. So hang in there with that. That's your key.
Well, thank you so much for your time. You serve as an inspiration to so many of us, including myself. So this really means a lot. Joining me now is the multi-talented Egypt. I know you've seen her face on BET, and she's also a radio personality in New York City. Egypt, thank you for taking time out to answer a few questions.
No problem, Shelby. No problem at all.
Great. Well, first, if you could just tell our viewers how you decided on a career in broadcast. What really did it for you?
Okay, this is a long story. Honestly, radio and television was not my plan. It was never what I grew up saying, oh, I want to be on the radio, or oh, I want to be on television. I wanted to be an actress, and I went to college for theater at New York University. I guess my story could be about a lot like a lot of people's. You know, you don't have the finances, they cut your financial aid, you don't have the full student loan, they cut back your scholarship. That's what happened to me a year and a half into college at NYU. So I had to regroup, pull it together, ask God why, but then, and I wound up back in my hometown, Philadelphia, at Temple University. And you know how they say life takes you full circle sometimes, and God has something planned for you that you would never expect, but it turns out to be an even bigger plan than you could have had for yourself. They weren't accepting anybody in their theater program at Temple University, so I had to just sort of mosey on into the radio, television, and film department just to get in there and get my liberal credits done, and I got bit by the radio bug. That's what happened, and I turned out to be a radio personality. I've been in radio now for 8 years and television for 7 years, and it brought me full circle because now I'm working on 2 movies doing exactly what it is that I wanted to do in the first place.
Could you talk a little bit about the differences and some of the similarities in working in TV and then working in radio?
Well, we were talking about this off camera. There really isn't much of a difference. You just have to get used to just as opposed to having a microphone in your face, you have a camera in your face, but you're still talking to hundreds of thousands of people, and it's the same demeanor. My advice to anybody is be who you are. Be comfortable in your own skin. Don't be too prim and proper because you think that's how you're supposed to be. People relate to real people, and I think you get a lot farther just being exactly who you are. Radio, believe it or not, I think it's a little harder because you don't have anybody right there with you. Like right now, we got a whole camera crew, and I got Shelby Renee here with me. But when I'm in the studio and I'm on the radio, I've got walls around me, and I have to imagine my best friend next to me that I'm talking to, and I'm telling her about Whitney Houston, or I'm telling her about 50 Cent, or something like that. So I think radio's a little different because it's all smoke and mirrors, and you really have to use your imagination and creativity. But it's a lot alike, and radio really prepares you for television, and television prepares you for radio.
And lastly, we know BET has kind of dominated the African-American market. How do you feel about the emergence of the new African-American network?
I'm supposed to say I don't like it, right? Is that what I'm supposed to say? You know what? Competition is healthy. And that's in every business, and that's in every occupation. Competition is healthy because it keeps you on your toes. And BET has branded itself so much in the minds and the lifestyles of African Americans. I think it's going to be hard for anybody to just walk in and snatch that away. It's just not going to happen. There's so much money behind BET now, and so much of a reputation. But I think it's excellent for Comcast and Radio One to merge to create another black network. It's an option. We now have an option, and I think that's great as a consumer, as well as a host of television and being on the radio. So I say go for it. It keeps everybody on its toes.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and we will definitely be looking for you in these upcoming movies. Thank you.
You too. She's doing her thing.
I'm trying. Thank you.